Alright, so my name's Nick, by the way. I'll be getting out Checkers right now. Just gotta move myself out of the way. Okay, so yeah, as I said, this is Checkers. I'm going to be heading down to the back though, because I'm going to be asking you guys some questions about what species you think he is. So just so you guys get a good look. So, I have 3 questions. So the first one is, just show by raise of hands, by the way. How many of you guys think that he is a turtle? How many of you guys think that he's a tortoise? How many of you guys think that he's a penguin? Okay, so definitely not a penguin, and it's actually good. Most of you guys did get this right. So he is a desert tortoise. So I'm going to start off by pretty much just comparing turtles and tortoises, because this is a pretty common sort of topic of discussion. So for turtles, they do like to swim a lot. Like they spend a lot of their time in water. But for tortoises, they spend very little time in water. They live pretty much their entire lives on land. And then, if you guys can tell, I can't really show you that well, but tortoises, like Checkers, do have very pale shells. And this is because it kind of has the same function as like our sunscreen. It reflects the sunlight off their shells, and because like where they live is pretty much hot already. They do live in the deserts, so they don't want to overheat, so they do have to reflect some sunlight off. And then finally, another thing also with their shells is that turtles can put their heads into their shells all the way, but for tortoises, they can only do it about halfway or partly. So the next thing I'm going to say, it's kind of a weird favor, but I have a bad habit of calling Checkers a turtle. So if I happen to do that during the presentation, just let me know in some way or another. You can like shout out whatever, just of course not too loud, but just let me know. So next thing I'd like to jump into is their length and size. So turtles like
Tortoise.
Tortoises like Checkers can grow to be about 9 to 15 inches long, and height-wise they're about 4 to 6 inches, and for weight they're about 8 to 15 pounds. So for a shelled reptile, they're pretty big, but in the long run, I mean, they're still pretty small compared to a lot of other animals. So their diets are also small as well. They are herbivores, so they only eat plants, sort of like the drier plants that grow in the southwest and the deserts. And moving on to lifespan, these tortoises, sort of like some other reptiles, they have lifespans similar to those of humans. They can live to be about 50 to 80 years old. And just for reference, Checkers is 19, so like a 19-year-old human. He's pretty much a teenager, a few years older than me, so we're kind of in that teenage rebellion state, you know. It's a tough time. And then moving on down to their range, I kind of mentioned this before, how they live in the southwest, but they specifically like to live in the Mojave and Sonoran deserts, and they cover parts of California, Nevada, and Utah. And as you can probably tell right now, he is kind of moving in a digging sort of motion, and it is part of his nature. These guys do like to dig a lot. A single tortoise can dig 12 burrows at once, and they can all be about 35 feet long. But the interesting thing about this is that the single tortoise that dug these holes, these burrows, wouldn't occupy all of them. There are other tortoises that can live in these burrows too, that didn't really have a part in building them. And then moving on now to something else, this also has to do with their burrows. They dig things called collecting basins. So even though it doesn't rain a lot in the southwest, whenever it does rain, it can be collected into these basins for water storage. But then again, these guys actually, they don't see water much as a necessity, as I mentioned before, because an adult desert tortoise can actually go over a year without drinking water. And for the last fact, I'm just going to go down the aisle one more time, just to show you guys again. So the last thing, you may notice that there's a bit of a front extension on the shell. So this is called a gular horn, and for male tortoises, this can have a pretty significant use. So if two males want to be partners with the same female, they actually have somewhat of a jousting match with these things. So they try to flip each other over pretty much, and there are vital organs on the back of these shells for these guys, so it can be unfortunately fatal if they're left on their backs for too long. So yeah, basically that is everything I have to say about Checkers. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.